great. So here's the agenda, what I'm going to do. First, the planets. I'm going to kind of introduce the planets and make it like, think of it as like a family affair. These planets are like family members, okay? I'm gonna talk about conversion, which is changing the planetary expression to the more constructive thoughts of that planet. And then after we'll talk about mental antidotes, which is kind of like the idea of family dynamics. If you're not getting along with one family member, you make an ally with another family member to help you out. That's
Well,
kind of like mental antidotes. All right, so this idea of the Hermetic principle, as above, so below, as within, so without. This means that the Earth is a reflection of what's above us, which are the stars and the planets. And also, what is inside of ourselves is a reflection of what's going on outside of ourselves. So, or outside, inside, they're interchangeable. And that is why astrology is what we use as a map for that. Um, you don't have to use astrology. Everybody gets along in life and figures things out. But some people always ask, how does this work? This is a Hermetic principle that's talked about all the time, and that's what it means. We're looking at the map so we can understand our lives better if we so choose to use astrology for that. So, all right. The planets, a family affair. Um, what was I was gonna say something. I wanted to, let me go back. So there is a lot of material here. And as I was making the the presentation, I can't do everything. There might be times where I might ask you guys in the audience if you can think of a scenario using a planet. When I get to that part, I might ask somebody in the audience, or if anybody, you can just kind of speak up or raise your hand or something. And I'll try to see if somebody has like an idea. Um, I might come up with some ideas about like scenarios to make it more understandable, but I might also call upon others. And if you can think of something, just kind of raise your hand or something, and I will see how the audience thinks. Okay. All right. So the sun, the first planet, and that's the symbol up there, is like the father archetype. Um, it's where you get your identity. Hold on a second. And also, I'm sorry that I'm going to read my slides, but it does help when this is recorded and other people go watch it later. They can write things down and stuff. And this is just my style. I read the things. So sorry if some people don't like that, but that's what I do. All right, so let's start with the sun. It's like the father archetype, where you get your identity, your ego, your willpower, vitality, and creative spark of deity. There are 12 archetypes of identity based on the 12 zodiac signs. Which sign your sun is located in gives your individuality. So we consider the sun as all the 12 zodiac signs is kind of where your identity looks like. Then you have your moon, like the mother archetype, where you get your memory, emotions, intuitions, and it's around domestic life. She rules domestic life by creating a home out of a mere house and keeps the memories in the family photos and keepsakes. She nurtures the young and helpless, supports the emotional needs, and reminds you of your daily chores. Which sign your moon is located in will show you how you express your emotions. Now, remember, these are archetypes. So if your actual family dynamics are different, don't worry about it. These are the standards, right? Okay, and then Mercury, think of Mercury as like your talkative older sibling. I have an older sister who was always on the phone when she was a teenager, always talking and communicating with others. So I kind of have that archetype. Mercury is like the intelligent older sibling who is always talking or texting on the phone and thinking about things. This sibling loves to learn new things, express their thoughts and ideas, and communicate with others. Which sign your Mercury is and located will show you how you communicate and express yourself. And I did one of the other classes I did, I talked all about the zodiac signs, so you can always reference that class too. Okay, so Venus is Earth's twin sister in astronomy. And think of her like Venus Williams, who's also a twin. Um, she is often in and out of romantic love. She likes style and beauty and attracts others who share her values. She values money or what it can buy, such as physical items, earthly indulgences, gifts for others, and sometimes the luxuries of in life. Which sign your Venus is located in shows you how you express love and beauty. And Mars is like the energetic little brother. He is always running around on the playground or leading the other kids in fun game of war or competition. He is the little brother who loves to build forts and sandcastles on the beach, but has just as much fun wrecking the forts and destroying the sandcastles afterwards. Which sign your Mars is in will show how your energy is expressed. And again, I have an older brother, but he was magnificent at making forts, and then he loved to destroy them afterwards. And I never understood that. I always wanted to keep them, but his energy was, I want to build another fort. Okay, so then we have Jupiter. Think of Jupiter as your jovial high school teacher archetype. He's the funny, engaging, easygoing high school teacher who everyone likes to be around. He imparts various philosophies and world religions to the class so that you can have a broader view of the world and see the bigger picture in life. Which sign your Jupiter is located in shows you how you expand and broaden your thinking. As opposed to Mercury is more the day-to-day communications, Jupiter is more like thinking the bigger picture around the world, the different cultures, different religions and philosophies. Saturn is like the strict and stern professor. This is the teacher you fear the most. Think of Professor Snape in Harry Potter. This teacher seems very strict in the rules, lays down the law, and punishes you for any infractions or misdeeds. He only does this to teach you that life can be hard, but that discipline, responsibility, structure, and organization will prepare you well for life's harsh realities. Which sign your Saturn is located in shows you how you set your boundaries. So then you got Uranus. Think of Uranus as your unique uncle. This is the eccentric uncle who does things in his own way. He is rebellious, individualistic, unpredictable, and an inventive free thinker. He changes course at the drop of a hat, but does so to keep you on your toes and to keep you thinking outside the box. Which sign your Uranus is located in shows you how you express your own uniqueness. And then we have Neptune. Think of Neptune as your fanciful, artsy aunt. This is the artistic and idealistic aunt who floats in and out of your life, telling you all about music, art, and the spiritual practices she has discovered. She is impractical and unrealistic, but also imaginative and compassionate. She often puts on her rose-colored glasses so that you can imagine a more beautiful, idealistic world that she would like everyone to have the opportunity to live in. Which sign your Neptune is located in shows you how you express your idealism. And then we have Pluto, who I had to find what was the best character of this, and I found it as Uncle Scrooge, McDuck, if you think of it, or Scrooge. This is the Uncle Scrooge archetype, very frugal with his money, but who has many resources and hidden treasures. He may develop powers of coercion that can attract others into doing his bidding. However, if he turns that coercion into cooperation with others, he can build a community of people who will rally around and love him instead of feel manipulated by him. Which sign your Pluto is located in shows you how you express universal welfare urges. Okay, so that was, let me go back. So these are kind of like the introduction archetypes of the planets. And so now what we're talking about in mental alchemy is conversion. And conversion is like the idea of each planet, and think of all the planets as your family. Everybody has all the planets in their birth chart. So we all have those family members. And so, and you have to relate to those family members always. And the family doesn't go away. You might not talk to them for a while, or you might always have a conflict with one family member or whatever. But so this idea of conversion and mental antidotes is kind of like, how can I get along with my family better? How can I make those things better for me? And the idea of conversion is appealing to the higher thoughts, the more constructive thoughts of that family member. So here's definition: finding the more constructive expression of the planet involved in the compound and substituting the more constructive expression for the more discordant expression. And also add feeling energy, which is C.C. Zane calls conditioning energy, of the sufficient intensity and volume at the same time. Associations with pleasant thoughts of a particular nature can also help in conversion. And this next slide is just more about what C.C. Zane's quotes about what conversion is. Conversion of thought elements within the thought compound is effective to produce a change in the compound in proportion to the volume and intensity of the conditioning energy when added to the compound. Think of volume and intensity as intensity is how much energy and power you're putting into it, and volume is kind of like, how did I put that? Oh, we'll get into that anyway. All right, both conversion and mental antidotes work better if added to them are feelings of intense pleasure or pleasant conditioning energy. In mental alchemy, conversion involves reconditioning the discordant feelings associated with the problem family members, the planets, to express more harmoniously. Okay, so now we're going to go through each of the planets. The sun is a little bit different because these slides for the sun has a little bit more in them. And I have created a worksheet that I will either email to everyone who has showed up for the class, or we'll find a way to have it posted on our YouTube channel that'll go with the video for here. But each of the planets is going to have the harmonious and discord things, and then the thing over here, the zodiac, so that you could fill in, look at your birth chart and fill in where your sun sign is located, the best qualities, the worst qualities, the house number it's located in, what does that department of life relate to? And then whether other aspects, the other planets that are making aspects, and what are the aspects. And this worksheet will help you for the next class, the last class that Bridie will take care of. And she will kind of lead us. You will pick a planet that you will want to work with. And Bridie has a wonderful way of working through that. So I'm kind of like introducing all of this. All right. So, okay. So on the right side of the thing, the discord, I just want to show you, discord can mean intensity, too much of something. Volume is a weakness or lacking something if it's discordant, and broken needs more help fixing it. Harmonious can mean in intensity, the right amount of zest, and volume is kind of like the middle ground. And then fixed is if you've already worked through a problem and now have constructive thoughts of a pleasant nature subconsciously showing up. So when we're talking about mental alchemy, what that means fixed is like you might see something in your chart, but you've already worked on that problem and it no longer poses a problem for you. Somebody else might read your chart and say that, but you've already worked through it, and now it's become second nature to use the more harmonious aspect of that. That's happened to me before. Somebody read my chart and said, "Oh, this might be a problem for you." And I was like, "Yeah, it used to be, but not anymore." So anyway, all right. So this on the left-hand side, an example of self-esteem deals with the sun. Okay. Um, uh, some people have healthy self-esteem, some people have too much, some people have a lack of self-esteem. In this example, I was just giving little ideas if you have self-esteem issues. Stop with the negative thinking about yourself or others. Include others in this, because the sun, we often think of ourselves, our identity, who we are. But it helps to think of others when you're working with your own issues, because it's always better to think of others. It broadens your picture instead of always just putting your thoughts back into yourself all the time. I mean, we have to think of things when we're trying to figure things out about ourselves. But there's a wonderful, I would say, conversion that happens when you start putting your thoughts towards others in positive light. It reflects back on you and starts helping you out. So stop the negative thinking about yourself and about others. Become aware when you are directing negative thoughts to yourself or others, because that can become a habit over time, and you forget and you don't realize that there's a negative tape playing about yourself, and it shows up at all the moments. And you got to become more aware and say, wait, this is some negative thinking about myself. I got to pay attention to this. Stop it right now. I don't need this right now. And do something else. So then focus on your positive and truthful qualities that you already know to be true about yourself. We can all find things in ourselves that we know we have some good qualities or skills or something. When you get that negative self-thinking, stop it and start going, okay, I have positive things. Let me think of those right now to get me out of this negative thinking. Give praise to both others and yourself, both in speech and in thought, because thoughts are things, thoughts get added. So don't just say something positive to somebody and think negative, because then you're kind of crushing it out. No matter how hard a difficult time you're having with somebody else, think positive thoughts of them. It will help. And you can verbally say things, but thoughts definitely help. I've done this myself, and it does definitely help. Know that you are just like others, that you need to work on your faults and develop your gifts and understand other people have the same thing. They're working on different faults, their own, and they have other skills and gifts. And just know that we're all different. So if you think somebody's acting stupid because they're not doing this, maybe that's their fault and they have another skill set. So just understand that. And then show kindness both to others and also to yourself when you're having a bad day or things are happening. Give, you know, give a little bit. Okay, so now where are we? We're down to the moon. All right, I'm not going to read all the harmonious discordant. Okay, you can always go back to this video later on when it's posted and write these down. Actually, all these are going to be in the worksheet. So I've taken them exactly from here onto the worksheet. So I'm not going to read all those. I'm going to read the slide on the right-hand side, the example. So the moon mother, allow your emotions to flow as long as you need when in any kind of pain, physically, mentally, spiritually. Find a safe space or write in a journal or confide in a friend or a loved one. This is so you don't want to repress your emotions. Otherwise, emotions will find another outlet to flow, like a burst dam when you least expect it. So think of a dam as water. Emotions are water. If you constantly say, no, I'm not going to get emotional. I'm not going to cry, or I'm not going to get angry, or I'm not going to feel this. Repression is not the answer. Actually, a more healthier way is to either, like I said, write in a journal, write all your emotions out, give yourself permission to let it flow, or do what I did one time where I wasn't giving myself any judgment. I went off by myself and I just let myself feel and express my emotions until I was done. I felt better. And then I could have a healthy relationship with those emotions and that problem, that situation. And then with another way of discordant emotions, if you discover you are overly emotional for no good reason, you can't figure out. I have a friend that talked about crying at a commercial and he didn't know what was going on. And he seems like, this seems weird. There's something else going on here in my life. And the commercial, it's not about the commercial. There's something else going on. I have discovered, lots of people have discovered, I don't mean I discovered it, I researched it, that your physical body and your emotions have a connection there. So you might look at your physical body. Problems in your intestines can cause unexpected and strong emotions. Gut health has a direct connection to your emotional health. And I've heard that from a colonics person who did colonics. So things in your intestines, your gut, and the moon rules that, by the way, your stomach. And a mother gives nurturing milk to babies for both nurturing and nutrition. So the moon rules nutrition and the emotions, hence why they are connected. Okay, so now we got the talkative older sibling, Mercury. Mercury. So let's see. With Mercury discordant, are you too talkative? Are you too nervous to speak? Do you say inappropriate things at the wrong time? Are you afraid to express yourself from fear of criticism from others? Or do you criticize others when they express themselves? Like the metal Mercury, words can be readily absorbed by you, both consciously and subconsciously. Words, thoughts, and also silence are powerful tools we use every day. Don't forget about silence. Become a conscious of your thoughts and your words to others. These thoughts and words will come back to you in a distorted type of reflection, distorted type of, like, think of the mirrors at a fun house on a carnival. We're all weird. The mirrors show you in a different way. So you might discover that what you put out there in your thoughts and your words comes back to you. It might not look exactly the same, but these things do come back to you. That's why I was talking about think positive thoughts to others when you're having problems, because those positive thoughts will come back to you from others. And then don't forget to listen. Listen is part of Mercury. Listening to others whose words you like to hear and can help you learn other methods of speaking. If you have, when I wanted to become a teacher, I started paying attention to every different teaching methods, how people spoke and taught. I'm still not as good as a lot of other people, but I'm still trying, working on it. All right. So now we got Venus, our twin sister. So Venus, thoughts, ideas, and feelings of love and beauty permeate our culture. And these help raise our vibrations. Which sign is your Venus in shows how you express the gifts and give gifts of love and beauty. How do you like to give and receive gifts? I found this on a website. Probably a lot of people have heard of this. There's different types of gifts that people like to get and then end up giving. And you could probably look at your Venus in your birth chart. You probably already know, but if you look at your Venus, you'll discover how you like to give and receive gifts. I'll just let you know, I have Venus in Virgo. Virgo is a very practical sign. I tend to give gifts of practicality, and I usually like gifts of practicality. I love soaps that smell nice. That's a practical gift, as opposed to a pretty thing that I have to put on a no purpose to that. So I prefer practicality. And I already knew that, and I looked at my chart, and Venus is in Virgo, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. All right. So do you like to give and receive gifts of service? Some people like service gifts. Or do you like physical items of beauty or practicality? Do you prefer to give and receive verbal compliments? You like to hear positive words or something? Or would you rather just spend time with somebody and have time for physical touch? And so when you're attracted to somebody else, you might want to look at your Venus and their Venus, because how you give gifts are going to show up there in your Venus. And many people I've heard talk about, oh, my boyfriend does not give good gifts. He gives these type of gifts. I want these kind of gifts. Just look to your Venus, and then you can understand each other. And then if you understand how the other person likes their gifts, maybe you can do that if you love them and you want to give them what they like. All right, so then we got Mars. Mars is like our energetic little brother. And anger falls under Mars. Anger can be both healthy and discordant. We all need a little healthy dose of anger every now and then. Discover if you are angry because of a certain situation, has always made you angry, or if it is newly developed anger. And what I mean by that is, there was a period of time where every time I got on the road, I became angry. And it was one day and everything was fine, and I was angry at all the drivers. And I realized that became a habit. people used to always talk about, oh, I got mad at this guy, he cut me off, or oh, I go over there. And I used to get involved in those conversations. And then I became angry. And then before I knew it, it became a habit. And um, and then I was realizing I'm not really that angry. This was just a habit that developed over time, and I don't want it anymore. So I always the first step, become conscious of a thing that you want to stop. And then I like to evaluate it, learn about it. Why am I angry? I'm not angry. I don't care. So then I would listen to my music. I'd focus on the music on the radio instead of worrying about what other people are doing. I just said, I'm a good driver. I'm going to drive better. I'm not going to worry about what these people are doing. I can't control them, but I'm going to stop being angry about it. Evaluate if your level of anger is warranted to the situation. Oftentimes, um, if you have higher anger than the situation allows, it means you've pent up anger that you're afraid to express, and then it needs to come out at some point. And it might come out at the smallest thing and you blow up. So then you have to realize that you can't repress things all the time, that you have to allow a healthy flow of emotions and then allow for the volume of anger or passion at the situation is appropriate. That would be a harmonious thing. Find out if your anger is healthy and makes you initiate doing something about the situation. That's what anger is for. It gives you initiative. It gives you a passion to want to do something. If it's discordant, um, sometimes you have anger, lots of anger over things that you can't recognize in the day to day, and you turn it inward and it goes inward and it causes health issues if you keep repressing it. And that's why I always say, that's why I like astrology or, figuring these things out. Where does it come from? And use anger and passion for more constructive developments. That's what it's for. It's meant to light a fire under you so you can go about doing things that you want to do. You have a passionate for a cause or something, great. Don't just get angry at the cause or if something's happening in the world. Do something that you can do constructively because you have a passion about that situation. Don't just get angry. Okay, so now we have jovial Jupiter. Try to find it. Okay, so which department of life is your Jupiter located? This will show where you are charitable, optimistic, and gain opportunities. If the Jupiter, hold on a second. Okay, this is my phone. Okay, so if Jupiter is in a square with another family member, meaning another planet, then you must slow down your optimism or generosity. Think about the bigger picture before you give away something. So this is an example I was giving because Jupiter is where we get our benefits from. So it's often, most people don't have a discordant Jupiter. Most people, there are some that do. And an example of a discordant Jupiter is like you don't have any money, but you give tips to everybody, a too much of a tip, a heavy tip, and you're too generous, and you would think that's generosity, but it's to your own detriment. So, there are times when you can do it overly excessive. So I was given an example, if you have a square with another planet. We talked about squares in 2 classes ago when I was talking about aspects. A square is you'd slow down, you'd think about things and do it slower. So if your Jupiter's in a square in your chart with another planet, you want to say, hey, in these two planetary family members are relating to each other, we got to slow it down and take it more slowly and think about these things before we just go off and do our expansive Jupiter and like that. If Jupiter, excuse me? Oh, Bridie, if you're the one talking, it's all weird. You had a weird thing there. I don't know what was going on there. Okay, I muted everybody, I think so. If Jupiter is in an opposition, then find out the departments of life that will be influenced by your generous nature and which departments will not see that optimism. So if you have an opposition in your birth chart with Jupiter, in your mind, you're gonna think, I'm generous, I'm optimistic, but you're gonna be generous and optimistic in that department of life where Jupiter located. And in the opposite, people might see you as not generous, as non-Jupiterian. So that's what astrology helps us look at and say, well, I feel like I'm generous. Well, when are you generous? Where are you generous? I have Jupiter in my third house. My generosity comes from my private thoughts. I think that, but a lot of people see my Saturn or my stingy Pluto or something else. But my thoughts, they're a little more hidden, but I think these thoughts. So I have to recognize that not everybody is going to see that Jupiter generosity everywhere. Everybody's going to have it in a different location. So next is Saturn. Saturn as the strict professor. Professor because he teaches us things. And in the CC Zane world, Saturn is often discordant by astrodynes for most people. However, it doesn't mean that you can't use the higher quality of Saturn. Use the more constructive traits of Saturn for the department of life it's located in. If Saturn these are examples, I was just pulling it out of the air. If Saturn is located, say, in your fifth house, you can organize and prepare for fun times and for children. Your fun will likely be structured. I just discovered I have a long-term friend who I knew whenever we would go have fun or go to a concert, I couldn't believe how structured she wanted everything to be to go have fun. And then I just learned recently that she has Saturn in her fifth house. And I go, oh, no wonder she likes structured fun. Otherwise, it's not fun for her. Or if you have Saturn in your fourth house, as an example, you may feel a sense of heavy responsibility in your home and family. But if you bring structure to your family home, you may alleviate the fear of loss, because there's the other side is the fear of loss. So oftentimes we have a hard time getting rid of fear of loss. So more constructive idea is do as much preparation as you can and then let go. You can only do as much as you can. There is the rest of the world that's happening, that's working with us, and I have a strong Saturn. It's up at my 10th house, but I had to learn how to prepare as best I could, which I did for a case of my career going away. And then I had to learn how to let go of that fear. And I prepared as much as possible, and then it's done. And then you have to learn how to let go. And with Saturn, part of that is learning to let go. And that's where you might pull on other family members to help you with that. Okay. And then we have Uranus and Neptune. And so how about here, I call on other people. Does anybody have examples of Uranus, the more constructive use of Uranus as opposed to the more negative use of Uranus, or a more positive Neptune as opposed to a more negative Neptune. And if you look at all those words there, does anybody have an example they might want to share? If not, that's okay. I'll give it a second.
I might have, oh, go ahead. Gail,
Okay.
go ahead, Gail.
Go ahead, Gail. Oh, you gotta unmute.
Studying astrology.
Oh, Uranus, yes. Studying astrology, yes. That's the higher intelligence, inventiveness. And I know, yeah, Uranus does rule astrology. So that's the higher use of it as opposed to going to the negative side of eccentricity or individualistic. Actually, that's a good example, Gail, because when I used to think a lot inwardly, Jupiter in my third house, constantly thinking inwardly about things, astrology took me out of that. And now I constantly think of other people. And I think about when people are going through issues, I think, oh, that's astrology. Where would that planet be? So it's great. That's a great example. Yes, Miss Lynn, do you have an example?
Can I add on? Was that
Sure.
Gail that mentioned that?
Gail mentioned that.
So I
Yeah.
want to add on to what Gail said. So I would like to say astrology, along with what you're doing with broadcasting with us in a social group, discussing the higher intelligences of um, what we're doing now with Jupiter and Neptune, and you presenting it to us in a social setting.
Groups. Yes. Yeah, because Uranus is about associations and groups and humanitarian uh, efforts, altruistic ideas. Yeah, that's right. And then Neptune. I have a wonderful Neptune. Um, Adria.
I have Uranus in Gemini, and this is a generational planet thing. For those of us who was born in those years of the 1940s when Uranus was in Gemini, and you were talking before about those outer planets having certain traits and everything and urges and ways to use it. And I think about those groups of people who were all born with that. Well, I have it in Gemini in my seventh house, and I enjoy communicating with other people about astrology, and I call it astrologizing when we get together about astrology. And it's in Gemini, and it also rules my third house, so it's kind of a double Gemini Mercury thing there. So I'm glad to have that. It's positive for me. And I want to ask you a question, Yvette. You talk about your Mercury in the third house is more inward for you. My
Jupiter. It was Jupiter.
Jupiter, oh, I'm sorry. My
Yeah.
Jupiter is in the 12th house, so is my Mercury. And I feel like the 12th house is pretty inward and kind of keep to myself a little bit, although my Jupiter is like 2 degrees from my ascendant. So how does the third house how is that keeping it in?
Adria, that's a wonderful question, but that's probably a question for another type
Okay,
of.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to run
Yeah,
over.
no worries, no worries. Now I understand you got Uranus and Gemini, so that makes absolute sense to me. But we're gonna keep on the class.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd love to have a discussion about astrology one day, like where we could just discuss and talk about that. I used to have them in person, but this is just gonna be a class, so we're not gonna go to that. But thanks for sharing.
For examples, I thought you wanted some, so that was why I asked that. So sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Okay, and then Neptune, we'll just touch upon Neptune, is the higher thing of Venus. So think of Venus's favorite aunt is Neptune. So Venus has more of the romantic love, where Neptune is more about the universal love. And it's also highly artistic and and idealistic. It's also about our spirituality and our psychic receptivity. Of course, on the negative sides, you know, your psychic receptivity can be confusion of reality. And we've all seen that at times, which is sad because these people have a great psychic ability, but if it's not used right or it's not harmonious, it can become confusion in reality or illusion as opposed to so we all need help with Neptune's wonderful, but we need things to help it out so it doesn't go discordant on us. All right, and then we got Pluto, and Pluto is the higher octave of the moon. And so think of mother's favorite brother is Pluto, the higher octave. So the moon deals with the home and the family, and Pluto is more like societies, families, cooperative efforts, as opposed to the mob mentality. Feelings of connectedness with groups, as opposed to obsession with others, is a Pluto thing. The search for deeper meanings in life is a higher thing of Pluto, whereas search for digging for other people's secrets is kind of like a negative thing. So with Pluto can be transformative. It's associated with death and transformations, as well as renewal and rebirth. Pluto likes to dig up other people's secrets to be able to hold it over heads of others. He wants to coerce. That's a negative thing. Instead, use other people's secrets to understand people's psychology better and dig deeper into the meanings in life. Learn how to let go of obsessions and find more constructive ways to use your powers of perceptions of others. And those are some ideas around Pluto. Okay, so this is just one slide. I was trying to do something else, but it didn't really work out. So Zane does talk about associating pleasant thoughts and feelings when you're trying to go with the higher constructive thoughts of a planet's thoughts. And he says it would be helpful to bring in feelings, positive feelings when you're trying to do the higher thing. And I thought of these different or 5 senses to use when you want to associate something of a higher nature. So I'll just give you an example. I have a grand trine with planets, and one of them in the grand trine is in my 4th house, which is home. And I light incense. I bring out my paint. Neptune is in my 4th house. So I like to do art at home. I lit incense, and then I put my favorite movie on the TV and I paint. And this is a wonderful healing thing that I do for myself when I don't want to think of the negative things in the world. I do it for a period of time to reset the week as it goes when I go to work and do all the regular things. But I realized that every time the association thing with the smell. So there were days when I didn't have time to bring out the paints but I go into the living room and I'd light the incense and I start watching my show and I was like, oh, so every time I light that incense, I think of these wonderful feelings of painting and watching my show and feeling comfortable in my living room. And now I don't have to generate those positive feelings. I can light that incense and all of a sudden those associations all show up and I have positive feelings related to that incense. So that was my kind of like the example of these things when you want to go for the higher expression of thoughts and you need to bring in a pleasant feeling. Think of something that you already associate with a pleasant feeling and bring it in. Like if you like Starbucks, the smell of coffee, and you're going to work, maybe that's a positive thing when you hate work and you make a pot of coffee and you're like, oh, this is a positive. So I can try to think positive when I go to work. But this slide is all about that, use all the senses. Popcorn with movies. Some people, if they eat popcorn outside of watching a movie, they have that feeling of, oh, I love movies and popcorn. Now I have that association. So that's what this slide was about. So, all right, now we're going to talk about mental antidotes. Each planet has a mental antidote except for the sun. Think of it as if you don't get along with one family member, you look for an ally of another family member to help you out. Okay, and this picture on the right is from course 3, Spiritual Alchemy. And these planets are the mental antidotes to each other. So if you recognize the symbols, you'll see. But anyway, I'll start with the sun. There's no mental antidote. So you have the sun represents your identity, ego, and individuality. If you have a weak sun, then you would add more power and self-esteem, thoughts, and associations. If you have an afflicted sun, then you look to conversion into the more positive aspects of the sun. And that's why the sun is at the bottom all by itself, because it doesn't have a mental antidote, according to C.C. Zane. Okay, so so of course I brought in the picture, well, not the pictures, but the color coding, which makes it a lot easier to remember the planets with the color coding, I think, anyway. So they're over their symbols. So Saturn is the antidote to Venus, and Venus is the antidote to Saturn. And meaning these thoughts, Venusian thoughts, are the antidote to strict Saturn thoughts. Jupiter, jovial Jupiter thoughts are the antidote to talkative Mercury thoughts or communicative thoughts. And Mercury is the antidote to Jupiter's. Mars is the antidote to the moon, and moon is the antidote to Mars. And then, of course, we have our higher octaves. So again, Saturn and Venus are mental antidotes to each other, but Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. So Neptune, you can also look at your birth chart where Neptune is if you want to do a mental antidote to Saturn. Mercury, Uranus is a higher octave of Mercury. So you can also use Uranus for Jupiter. And then Pluto is the higher octave of the moon. And so you can use Pluto with Mars if they have a better aspect rather than the moon and Mars if they have a poor aspect. Okay. Use mental antidotes when there is a harmonious aspect to each other. So again, you'll have to look at astrology. This is in chart form, but you can also look at the aspect grid to find the aspects. So in this example, this picture over here, Mars is semi-sextile to the moon. Semi-sextile is 30, 60. No, it's one, no, two. Okay. So that's actually sextile, isn't that? Yeah. Anyway, yes. Virgo, Libra, Scorpio. So that's 30, 60. It's actually a sextile. I got that wrong. Okay, but a sextile is a positive aspect. And so Mars and the moon are antidotes to each other. And that positive aspect of a sextile is a harmonious aspect. So that's when you can use these two as mental antidotes. As opposed to this one, which Saturn and Venus are mental antidotes to each other, but in this example, they are square to each other. They're 90 degrees apart. And so you might not want to use these two as mental antidotes because they already have a struggle, an obstacle is the keyword for square. CZ Zane says you'd rather use conversion instead of if these have a bad aspect to each other. Or in my, or as I was describing aspects, this is this aspect of calling it slow down, slow down. So you might want to slow down your Venus with your Saturn in those aspects, but they'll be discordant, so you might want to use conversion instead. All right. So this is just an idea, like your birth chart is your general characteristics. It's like your family dynamics when you're born into a family. Everyone has a family. Each family member relates to other family members different from person to person. But then, just like in astrology, we progress the chart because you start growing up and you start relating to different family members differently, right? Some people that you got along with as a child, you no longer get along with as an adult, or vice versa. I actually didn't get along with my brother as a child, and as adults, we actually do get along. You could think of progressions as that. If you look at your progressions, and CC Zane does talk about in the other books about looking at your progressions and your aspects of progressions for mental antidotes and conversion. Of course, we don't have time. We're not going to go into that. CC Zane has the books on it. So that's that idea. And I just mentioned it. Okay. So here, so like I said, Moon and Mars, I just want to take a look at the time. It's almost 7:30. Okay, so it's been an hour. All right, so we can talk about these a little bit better. And if you think of these characters, it's a lot easier to think of the mental antidotes. For domestic thoughts of the mother, energetic little brother, look for Mars. If they make a positive aspect, a trine or a sextile, a conjunction is fine too, or no aspect at all, then you can use mental antidotes. You can use them. It's the negative, which are opposition square and semi-square and Susky square. If they make those aspects, those is when you probably don't want to use them as mental antidotes. But the idea of like a little energetic little brother running around the house to inspire the mother to get off the couch and chase after him. How does mother contend with constructive little brother building forts in the house and then destroying the forts afterwards? So if you think of these ideas, these help out with these mental antidotes. Mars can light a fire under your discordant domestic thoughts, or vice versa. If how does a mother's touch or concern for children or the weak help when you are angry at everyone else? How does cleaning the house or being around family in the home calm down manic energies? And of course, that's different for everybody. It's an example, an idea. And you might want to think of your own examples and other ideas around this to help you out. And then you have Mercury, talkative sibling, and Jupiter, jovial teacher. Okay, so I'm going down to the bottom paragraph because the middle paragraph are for everybody. It's all about a positive aspect, a conjunction, or no aspect at all. Then you can use the mental antidotes. So at the bottom, how does religious thoughts or the broader picture help your communication skills? How does thoughts of generosity toward others help when you are too nervous to talk to others? And then over here under Jupiter, how does small talk or spontaneous conversation with others help your overtly optimistic view? Or how does eccentric Uncle Uranus' weird view of the world counter your holier than thou perspective? And these are just characteristics of Jupiter that might be discordant. I can tell you, like with Jupiter, you might have this optimistic big picture scenario and it's like way too much. And then you have a little conversation with somebody, the Mercury conversation, day-to-day talk, and then you get a different perspective all of a sudden. You're like, oh, It's not just so big and broad and roses, you know what I mean? It puts it in perspective, in other words. It helps us. Everything's a perspective. All the family members help us out in some way or another. See life in a certain way. Venus, twin sister, love and beauty goes too far. So how does a disciplined and strict teacher give boundaries to a hopeless romantic serial dater? Or how does structure give your artistic flair a better look? Right? And then at the bottom of under Saturn, how can the higher vibrations of love and beauty bring softness to the heavy burdens of responsibility and structure? Why does older, more responsible men find young, artistic, beautiful women as wives? We've seen that so many times. It's a stereotype, but it's because these two things help each other out. They balance it. They're complementary to each other. And that's why we see it so often in the world. Okay, and then this is almost the last slide. And I'm just going to read this because it came from Course 9, Chapter 5. And it's basically an outline that CC Zane, it's all from CC Zane, kind of a little step-by-step process about how to do mental alchemy. Okay, so number 1, determine the thought compound responsible for the condition one wishes to correct, which is your planets in the signs and the houses making aspect to one another. That's a compound. Number 2, decide if it's better to use mental antidotes or conversion. Number 3, outline a specific plan for how you will accomplish this goal. It's always good to prepare, make an outline of how you think you can do that. Number 4, use directed thinking, which is a focus on what you want, not on the negative. Focus on what you want, the positive, not the negative. And induced emotion, create pleasant and joyful feelings around the thoughts you choose. And that adds the gas pedal, that adds the energy behind just the thoughts. The thoughts don't have a lot of energy by themselves, but the emotion adds the oomph to the thoughts. Number 5, determined to become consciously aware when discordant thoughts show up spontaneously. Always the first step is to become conscious of your thoughts, because our thoughts often have a way of repeating themselves or taking a mind of their own, and you follow along the way. You want to be in control of your thoughts. And the first way you can do that is you have to understand where your thoughts are going and become conscious of them and realize, oh, I don't want to go down that road. Pull it back. I want to do something different. Number 6, substitute constructive thoughts for the discordant thoughts when they spontaneously show up. So I had to do that when I had negative thinking about myself. It was on a relay tape that I didn't realize. And I was always in a negative space. This was years ago. And I had to stop the thoughts, be conscious of them. And then I tried to do positive thoughts. And in the first round, I was like, everything was negative. And I was like, oh, that's not. And I had to stop and say, at least be neutral. If I can't do positive yet, start with neutral, and then I'll work towards positive. And I had to do that. And eventually I got there. Number 7, add conditioning energy, pleasant feeling energy to constructive thoughts with proper intensity and volume. Proper intensity and volume, yes. Add pleasant associations to new thoughts desired. That's number 8. And number 9, repeat and repeat and repeat until it becomes a habit to think pleasant, constructive thoughts naturally in those certain situations. Because we all know you do something once, it's not going to stick. You have to do it over and over and over again until it becomes subconscious. Think of your subconscious as the programming that's going on behind the scenes. A lot of that we didn't even consciously aware got put in there as our subconscious programming. It's only when we're adults and we're going about life and we're having problems and situations and things are going bad that we have to start looking at our subconscious programming and going, hey, where did that come from? I don't want that anymore, you know? And they make ruts and roads. And you have to get out of those ruts and roads. And it takes a lot. It takes energy and focus and repeat and repeat and repeat until you get the subconscious programming you actually want to have happen. Every time you have a problem with a boss, stop, think positive thoughts of them, maybe say positive things if you can, or just at least think positive thoughts and then move on and always do it until you're constantly think positive thoughts of your boss. And then the relationship starts becoming better. I've done it myself. It works. Anyway, there we are at the end of class number 5. The last class, number 6, will be in a month on the first Wednesday in November, and Bridie will take us where we need to go. Okay, let's do the meditation.
Okay, and I'll reduce the time frame on it just so we stay within that time frame that we had hoped for, which is
Okay.
to end in like 18 minutes.
Okay.
It still won't be sped up. It'll just be spending less time there. So if everyone could, and moving into class 6 also, if everyone could make sure that you bring your chart and have awareness of at least your oppositions and your squares in your chart. Also, to the extent that you can do so and have sort of gone through the classes, and in the last class, I showed how to identify your compounds, which is, your aspects to each other, and then showed how to find situations and find those situations that relate to those discordant aspects that we see, which are the squares and the oppositions. Finding those planets that are in and the planetary energies that are in those spaces, and then finding in relation to the situation what planet you think is the one that you would like to alchemize. Because in mental alchemy, what we're doing, like what Yvette said, is we are taking the planetary energy and we're taking other planetary energies, either the same or something different, and we're using that to essentially modify that energy. So if you could take a look at your chart, and if you haven't already done so, think of a situation that was a discordant, challenging situation for you that comes to mind, that might be one that you want to work on as far as mental alchemy is concerned. If you're able to identify the planetary energy, and it might be helpful that if you can bring up the slide that has the seesaw on it, that shows what energies alchemize each other. So if you take a look at the planetary energy that, and think of a planetary energy, and think of a specific situation in which that planetary energy proves challenging to you. We're going to start there, and we're going to do some meditative directed thinking. And so if you could find that situation, sort of play it through in your head. What happened? What did you say? What did they say? What did you do? What did they do? And then notice what planetary energy comes to mind. If you haven't already identified it specifically in your chart, you can even just come up with the one that you think comes to mind as the strong energy. And then we're going to take the alchemizing energy and we're going to work with that. So it's helpful if you could find a comfortable place to be, whether it's standing or sitting or even lying down. You can keep your eyes um, open or slightly shut or even closed, depending on what works for you while you're doing this. And my suggestion always in starting off with these things is find situations that are not at a level 10 of extreme for you. We're going to work with less traumatic to start with. So finding a situation that is, say, a level 2 or a 3 for you. So if the first thing that came to your mind is like a level 10, let's dial it back to a level 2 or a 3 situation. And if you have to sort of regroup in your mind to do that, and then go into the new situation and play out the level 2 or 3 situation of extreme. We don't have the ability to provide counseling care or anything like that if a traumatic situation might um, cause somebody to have um, an issue related to it. So we just want to make sure that when doing this, you're doing this at your own risk and that you're also doing it in a manner that's the safest for you, which is to keep it at a lower level to initially practice. So finding that situation, bringing that to mind, and then playing it out. And in doing so, placing yourself by breathing here right now and noticing the groundedness of yourself in this moment, listening to my voice, listening to the space around you, feeling that space around you, the groundedness of feeling the seat or lying down, the spaces where the gravity is pulling you to the earth, knowing that although your mind is going to be playing in this situation, your body is here with your breath in this moment. And just take a couple of breaths, noticing it's the observer of this situation now of the mind that's breathing, and that you can take a look at this situation that you notice that's in the past, and you can see the players in it like you're standing on the outside of it. See yourself there in the past, see the other people or the things that are there in the past that you interacted with, and notice those interactions there, and noticing that you can see what's going on. You can see who's doing what. You can feel the feelings, and doing so as an outside observer. Just being there, what's there in this situation that you can see? Now, thinking about the planetary energies that were there and that were a big part of your experience there, noticing the discordant energy that you identified and where it shows up in that moment. Just watching it, really forcing the mind to just play through the scenario and apply the energy to what's going on, bringing awareness to how that energy affected what happened and what you chose to do or say or not do, and just how it played out as a result. Now, taking that energy that is the alchemizing energy, noticing what that is, imagine how would it be applied as was taught today in the class to help alchemize the situation in a manner that would provide you with a positive, more beneficial outcome that would allow you to live a greater, more fulfilling life, have better relationships, enjoy the moment better, whatever it may be. Looking at the situation, how would the application of that energy have changed the situation? Now, almost recreating the movie for yourself in your mind, rewinding the situation to the beginning, and just breathing, realizing you're here, safe, protected in this moment. And this is just a directed thinking exercise, knowing that you're the observer in this. And as the observer, you also get to be the magician of the moment. As you take the energy that is the alchemizing energy and you apply it to your actions and who you are in that moment, how can you use that energy in application in order to change the outcome of that particular situation? And as you breathe here, just watch and see in your mind's eye the change of that situation through the application of that alchemizing energy. What does it look like? What might you say differently? What might happen differently as a result? Just as you breathe here, play that out for yourself for the next couple of breaths. Noticing how what was taught today can work in application, and how doing the mental work of applying this energy to past experiences allows you to safely practice that application in this room, in this moment, anytime you choose to do so. As Yvette taught, the repetition is key. And the gift of the mind is that we can do the alchemy, we can do the mental alchemy in our mind's eye to past experiences over and over and over again, so that when we come into a similar experience the next time around, we'll have practiced that, and we don't need to use the next experience in order to practice. It can come in a more natural application. This type of meditation, as you're doing it, can be done every day, multiple times a day. It can be practiced with this situation. It can be practiced with other situations. It can be practiced with aspects that happen as a result of birth chart discordances. It can be done as a result of transits that are repeating, either on birth chart or progression aspects. We have such a gift here if we go back to our situation and notice, how does it feel in the body for you as you apply the alchemy? From the energy that started in this difficult situation to the energy that comes as a result of applying this energy, as a result of doing this mental alchemy. Noticing how the uplifted energy that comes out of this is the type of energy that encourages us to continue practicing, to continue the alchemy. Just breathing and going back to that specific moment, that specific experience, and being there in the experience of what happens when the situation is changed, the action is changed, the words are changed, simply as a result of applying the alchemy. And knowing that there's a blueprint here for how to do it. These classes are intended to be a blueprint for you, a gift that allows you to do this over and over and over again, so that as you go out into your life tomorrow and the next day, you'll have had the practice to go out and feel positive and excited about that next discordant experience, because you've already seen how you're going to apply the alchemy. Just breathing and knowing and being excited that you have the control, the ability to control the direction in which your life and the direction in which the moments of your lives go. Taking a couple more breaths, playing through that application of the alchemy, knowing what happened in the past doesn't matter anymore. And the beauty of those things that have happened that have been difficult and challenging is that they are now playgrounds that you get to play in, to see what happens when you come in and you take those moments of the mind and you apply the alchemy to them, so that the remainder of your days get better and better and better, just in the practice of this alchemy. Going back to that specific situation again, how does that play out for the rest of your life when you apply this alchemy and you change the outcome? And now the next time that you get into a similar situation, knowing you can do the same thing. What might it look like for you to do so if something in the future comes up that's similar? Knowing you've already practiced it and you can continue to do so, so that you're ready. Continuing to breathe, feeling in your body what it feels like to be able to apply this alchemy and move forward in your life using these tools. And as you make your way mentally back into this room, into the space you're in, and into this Zoom meeting, coming back for just a few moments and being here. But do you have anything else? And thank you all for that opportunity to do some directed thinking and applied alchemy. Thank you, Yvette, for a wonderful class.
Hey, yeah, thank you, Bridie, for that wonderful meditation. That was wonderful. Um, I I don't think I have anything to add. I think we did all the prep work and the final class, we're gonna work it through, right?
Yeah, I would say, as you can see, it's much better to come prepared with a situation or multiple situations, your birth chart, knowing what aspects you have there. We have 5 classes now that you can rewatch and the last class showed you exactly how to work your way through to find some of these details. And we will do some more directed thinking and learning about how to do the applied meta alchemy next time.
I think it's gonna be great. Yeah.